Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started. Dr. Jones, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You have made it to managing dental drama. Is this not the pinnacle of your career?
Oh, it's definitely the apex. It's all downhill from here.
Yeah, I doubt that very seriously, but thank you for saying that. So, well, I wanted to have you on today because last week, or actually 2 weeks ago, Dr. Kuba challenged me to invite other people onto the show, and it just so happened I was going to be heading out to your office this week in the great state of Washington, and I immediately thought of you to have on the show because I feel like you guys do a number of things well in your practice, and I want our listeners to hear about that. But before we get into that, I want you to tell our listeners a little bit about you and your practice.
Well, I'm an orthodontist. I've been practicing for 16 years now. Our practice is about an hour northeast of Seattle, Washington. Seattle's a pretty urban area, but by the time you get out to my practice, it's semi-rural. It's almost it's suburban, pushing rural. I started my practice from scratch 16 years ago, and that happened to be the exact quarter that the Great Recession started.
And so, timing.
Yeah, I kind of learned from the School of Hard Knocks a little bit, but it's helped me to learn how to kind of get through tough times. So when people are talking about an economic downturn or something like that, I've been there before. So.
Survived it before, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I'm an orthodontist, orthodontic specialist, and right now I just work in this one office. But when I was coming up during the recession in 2007, I did whatever I could to make ends meet. So I worked a corporate job on the side, and I even did dental hygiene 2 days a week.
Did you?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow.
So shout out to the hygienist because I totally know what that life is like, and it's a challenging job. Like, the people don't want you to sit them back at all, or they think that every time you hit them with water, you're trying to freeze them out or something like that. So,
so cheap.
Yeah, hats off to the hygienists out there.
It's a hard life. We're very thankful that hygienists exist and continue to work in the field. So
absolutely.
So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is I do feel like even from the get-go, we've worked together for a couple of years now, and even from that initial meeting, I had the opportunity to sit with your team and learn individually about them, and there was instantaneously just this evident respect that the team had for you, for your wife who's involved some in the practice. There was an appreciation that they had for you, and it was very evident. And I feel like even over the couple of years that we've been together, if it's possible, that's grown. I feel like there's even more loyalty and appreciation for you guys. So I wanted our listeners to hear a little bit about how you feel like over time you've fostered a good culture in your practice, and I think you guys do a ton of things to really work on that.
Yeah, so when I started my practice, I was fortunate enough that I found a couple of good employees almost right off the bat that helped to kind of set the standard for the practice, and taught me what a good employee looks like from the get-go. And I've tried to always just build on that strength as much as possible. And of course it's hit and miss. There's been times where we realized the people that we were hiring just weren't going to be a great fit for the culture or what our ideals were. And I think when you realize that, it's important to kind of move on quickly so that you don't spoil the water, poison the well, so to speak, with the culture that's there. I realized that I'm not really great at personnel management myself. And so after we grew large enough that there was enough of a staff to try and manage, I realized I needed help with consulting or coaching to bring me along. So I've really relied heavily on the advice of what I think are wise mentors in the ortho and dental field to run ideas past or help me to make the decisions that I need to make. And I've had some really excellent coaches and consultants like you over the years who've pushed me to maybe make some hard decisions, or to realize that in order for my business to grow, we need to really have the right people in the right place. And there have been times where we maybe didn't have that exactly, and it does seem like the people that are in the office figure it out over time. Like, if this isn't my spot, then I'm just not comfortable in this position, and then working to find people that do fit in that spot has been a big goal of ours.
I think that's such a critical point that we don't really think about often enough. I mean, we talk about, do we have the right players on the team and the right, people in the right seats and all of that, but it really does have an impact on culture when there's an outlier, or when there's somebody that doesn't adhere to the culture of the team and of the practice owner. It really can throw that dynamic off pretty quickly, like you were talking about, poisoning the well. And so I do think so much of team culture is built on getting the right people in place. And even as I look back a couple of years ago, I would say it was a solid team even a couple of years ago, but there was maybe a negative Nancy or two on there. Maybe one that was tended to think more negatively, and then one that just performance-wise couldn't necessarily accelerate and keep up with the rest of the team, and that was causing some ripples and some frustration. And so even your willingness to kind of allow those people to move on essentially on their own, seeing their way out, allowed room for better individuals, and I think that all played well into the culture. One of the things that I love that you do, we talk about personalities a lot on the podcast, and when we've tested your personality, you're phlegmatic, meaning more of an introverted, not as expressive. You're surrounded by a bunch of ladies on the team, and so that can be hard because they're needing a certain amount of information and communication from you. But I love that you've forced it into systems almost. Like one of my favorite things that you guys do is your School of Jones meetings, which, tell our listeners a little bit about that.
So twice a month we set aside an hour during workday. We do one Monday where we do an hour before work, and then we do one Tuesday or Wednesday where we set aside a little bit more than an hour at lunch. And the whole point is ongoing training. And so that can mean anything. I try and put together 5 or 6 PowerPoints a year that talk about ortho and the basics of ortho and kind of some of the subtleties and my philosophies, so that hopefully my team understands what I'm doing and why. Mm-hmm. And then we also set aside time for training on other things like customer service or marketing. And it also allows us some time if we need to take pictures for social media or talk about what the upcoming marketing plans are, that we've got time already set aside for that, because I find, if I don't schedule for it, especially with my personality, it's unlikely that I'm just going to bring these things up out of the blue. So it's forced me to set aside the time to make these presentations and really think about what things I want to emphasize to my team.
Yeah. And it's been remarkable for me to see in the couple years that we've worked together how much people really rely on those meetings. Even in our team meeting this morning, people mentioned how helpful those School of Jones meetings have been and how much confidence they've gained over the time that they've been with you because of those School of Jones meetings, which I think is astounding. Like, why would we not invest in that way in our team? And then they're getting some face time with you. They're getting to hear your thoughts, your expectations. You also do, I would say, a mini version of that, which is each morning there's an opportunity the day before or whenever for a team member to write a question on the board in the break room, and then that question can be asked of you in morning huddle. Is that correct?
Yeah. And one of the things that's kind of forced me to do that is that I really haven't hired that many people over the years that have ortho specific training, even dental training. I've taken a lot of people that are either coming from outside the dental industry, or maybe they finished their dental assisting training but haven't been in an office, because I almost prefer to have a fresh slate to work with a lot of times. And I try and really hire for the personality and the attitude and then I feel like I can train somebody that has those things to do all the dental things. So that's part of the reason why I do set aside this time specifically. And I think one of my biggest roles is just to educate in general, whether it's the dentists that refer to us or the patients that come in and are wondering about their teeth and what we're doing, but especially to educate my staff, because I would like for them to think as much about the patients as I do, like I do. And the only way I can do that is kind of constantly teaching them, like, I'm looking at this because of this, and I want you to do the same.
And I don't think, again, we emphasize that enough. Practice owners, as you know, have a ton on their plate, and it's like, oh, do our team members even really want to know this information? But I think they do. And it's interesting that the more they learn, the more confident they become, the more they become ambassadors of you or an extension of you. And that does take time. I mean, you're dedicating twice a month to the School of Jones, plus answering these questions and morning huddle and just constantly teaching and training. And what that has produced is really good ambassadors for you. And that's what we want at the end of the day. So I think that's a really fantastic thing that you guys do. I also love, you being an ortho practice, you have to do a lot with marketing and getting, professional referrals and all of that. But one of the things I've always noticed is that your wife helps a lot with marketing, and as she's delivering gifts, a lot of those same gifts are given to your team.
Yeah.
So the team members see these awesome gifts going out, and it was a really cool moment for me where I'm like, that is so cool, and I don't know that I've seen that before, because it can kind of be like, oh, I want that, as it goes out to the referral sources. And you guys you're like, buy extra and let's give those to the team members as well, which is really neat.
Yeah, that's definitely my wife, Erica, and she's generous like that and helping me think about the staff. But we are in a way marketing to our staff just as we're marketing to the other patients, like we care about you and want to make you feel special as well.
Yeah, and I think they do, for sure. So in addition to School of Jones, having questions, kind of forced communication time with you that the team really craves, giving gifts to them, just when you're gifting your referral sources, you're also gifting your team. You guys also do a lot of, I feel like, intentional team building as well. Can you talk about some of that?
Well, we try to, and just everybody lately has, a busy schedule, and it's hard to get everybody at the same time, but we try to set aside like happy hour so that people can go out and have a drink and fraternize a little bit outside of the office. And we really encourage people to think of this as a work family. There's a real fine line there, because we definitely want to turn off whatever's going on at home when we come into the office, and turn on the professional self. But I think that the closer that we can be, getting to know each other and caring about each other, I think then we are more willing to step up when we have a team member that is out or somebody that we see needs help. And I really love that they kind of step in and help each other when they see somebody that's having a challenging patient or struggling with staying on time or something like that. And I do think that feeling like they care about each other, outside the office spills over into what we're doing inside the office. For sure. And again, sometimes it's just creating the opportunity. I even this morning, I meant to ask you earlier, but I think it was one of your team members was saying she put a request up for taco night. Yeah. So I was like, taco night's like, once every month or two. And then we've done things like an escape room together, which was a ton of fun. And they will get together and maybe do a crafting project. And sometimes we'll combine it. Like the crafting project may be something that we're going to be giving out to our patients or the referring dentist, but the whole team will get together and make up gift baskets or something like that. But we'll buy food and we'll put decorations up and play music and things like that, so that it turns into a team building exercise too. Yeah. And again, thankfully, I feel like that gives that exposure. Again, with you being more of an introverted personality, the team wants to spend time with you. They want to spend time with Erica, and it gives them some kind of non-work time to really enjoy
your presence, and I think that's important as well. So can you think about anything else that you do from a team culture type standpoint?
Nothing's coming to me right now.
You're like, I think we talked about it exhaustively. And again, I think you've got an incredibly strong culture. It's one that I know is a lot of work. I think that's the main thing, is culture doesn't just naturally happen. I think you got to have the right people, and then you've got to invest the time, invest the emotional energy, and you guys have done a really, really good job of that.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to spend the energy and the time one way or another, and whether it's investing this time in developing the culture, or if it's if you're not doing that, then you're going to be thinking about your staff when you're at home and on the weekends and worrying about it. And so I would rather put that energy into building a positive team if possible.
For sure. The other reason I wanted to have you on the show is I told you guys that I feel like you're one of the most creative when it comes to marketing. So every practice has to do some level of marketing for the most part. And one of the things that I really enjoyed getting to know about you guys over the last couple years is just the cool time and energy that goes into just really neat marketing efforts. So from patient contests to, just you name it, y'all are out there doing it. So can you tell us some of your favorite marketing ideas that y'all do, and how do y'all come up with the ideas?
Well, a lot of it, again, is Erica.
Yeah.
I'm really blessed that she's a kind of a creative person, and she enjoys gifting. I think gifting is one of her love languages. And so asking her to gift to the dentists or the patients or the staff kind of just fits really well with her personality. So I can't take a lot of credit for it myself, but I do feel like one of our core values is generosity, and we just want to show that to our patients and the staff and the dentists in town, that if our office is doing well, I want it to spill out into everybody's life. And so that's kind of how I think about it. In terms of coming up with the ideas, I think we really languish over it. Like, we spend a lot of time, and Erica does and I do, thinking about what would if I were in a teenager's shoes, what things would I like. And we fortunately have a teenage daughter who's now willing to offer her 2 cents on what she thinks we should be doing for the patients, and it's kind of funny to hear. But when it comes to holiday gifts or something like that for the dentist, we're thinking about it the whole year. What could we do that would be meaningful and isn't just going to be the same as what we gave them last year. And we do the same for patient contests. What kind of things can we give a patient that they would really enjoy and use in their life, and hopefully that gets a little bit more engagement if we've put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah, I feel like from a contest standpoint, especially like patient involvement, your team also does a good job of, well, first of all, it's very visually present. So if there's a contest going on, like right now it's your headphone contest.
Yeah.
So you can win headphones for, I forgot, I read the card, but.
For leaving a review.
That's right, yes. And so even just the graphics and the design of what you guys display, it's very evident. There's little special cards at the front desk. There's a nice big sign on the way out to the clinical setting. The contest is very visually prominent. But then in addition to that, I think your team does a really good job of hyping up the excitement of that contest so that there's really good participation in it. And I think the team is excited about, it's not just that they're advertising it, they're also genuinely excited about the contest as well. And so I think that creates a little bit of fun in that environment too. So I think the contest, I think you guys do a fantastic job of consistently getting out to your referral sources. You're not only getting out with consistency, but like you said, Erica's creativity really comes through. I think the things that you guys put together are just cute. I can't think of another word other than they're just really neat, that y'all you can tell that you've put a lot of thought into it, and the gift that you're delivering it looks really good.
Yeah, we just don't want it to feel like we took something off the shelf at Costco and then brought it directly into their office. Even if it's something that we do get from Costco, we want to make sure that we put it in maybe some packaging that's nice, that feels like it's fun to open and fun to look at, or maybe they can even keep the packaging because it's something tangible that will stick with them. So we do, try and put our touch on everything, because I think we started doing that because that's how I felt like I cared for the patients, is that I'm not really like a cookie cutter orthodontist, and I don't just use like a 2-wire sequence or something like that to get them through their treatment. And I wanted the patients and the referring offices especially to understand that, this is the kind of care I'm trying to put into our patients' smiles, and so this is the kind of thought and touches that we're going to put on the gifts that go out too. So hopefully that is understood.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. That attention to detail that you put into each of those gifts is also going to be the attention to detail that you give to the smiles, and I think that makes total sense. And again, I think so much of it is just the creativity that y'all put into it, but also it's so important to deliver something that looks appealing, and you guys do a really good job of just consistently, your brand from a visual standpoint is very consistent. Your logo is really appealing. In the office, even talking about internal marketing, you guys have some really great ideas with you've got this amazing photo wall. I was out there this morning. As soon as I walked in, my eyes kind of go to that photo wall where you've got these beautiful canvas photos of patients that have recently finished treatment, and those photos change periodically. I know that at least the photos I'm looking at today are not the same photos I looked at last time when I was here. So can you tell us a little bit about your photo wall?
Yeah, so when I started my practice during the recession, one of the things I couldn't afford was wall art.
Yeah.
And so I built out the whole office, and I barely had enough, money left over for chairs. And so the walls were bare for years. And I didn't want to just like take something from Home Depot and put it on the walls. So we put a lot of thought into it. And so in the clinic, what I decided to do were these shadow boxes. And the shadow boxes have the local sports teams as well as like the local schools and things like that. And I thought that was a nice way for us to kind of tie in the community. But up front, I never was really all that happy with the art that we had on the walls. And then we decided what we want to do is showcase some of the smiles that we've been involved with. And we found a really wonderful local photographer who did our family photos, and they turned out nice. And so we asked her if she could help with doing some patient portraits. And so we've partnered with her. And we have a program when people get their braces off. Once a quarter, she'll have a photo day where a patient who's either in treatment or has finished treatment can go and get some headshots taken. And she, does it at a really reasonable price for us. And the patients get the benefit of having some portraits that they can use, for their holiday cards or around the house or whatever. But also, in doing so, they allow us to use their smiling portraits for our walls in our office. Yeah. And that's felt like a really natural way to kind of tie in the decor with what we really care about, which is, the smile when you're done, the smile that you have in your life. And so it's not just, the typical orthodontic pictures that we want up there. We want real life, warm, smiling photos.
They really are. They're every time my eye is drawn to that wall, because I know it's going to be different. So that's the other thing, is not only are these pictures happening on a quarterly basis, but you're changing those photos, pretty regularly from what I've observed. And so they pop at you because it's this super colorful wall that you walk into, and it's not just one or two photos. There's probably at least 20 up there, I would assume. And they're all just in perfect alignment, full pun intended there. Like the photos are all lined up perfectly, these square photos, and it's just, they feel like they're movement. Like there's a lot of life and energy in those photos. It's not just the headshot, it's laughter, it's, one of your photos up right now, my eye immediately went to the gentleman in the middle that's kind of doing a little like gotcha sign, or so it's just very vibrant, and it feels like it's constantly moving and changing, and it does feel like a celebration of your patients and the work that's been done, and that same attention to detail. So I think as soon as a patient or a potential family walks in the practice, from a decor standpoint, it screams, this is an orthodontist practice, and we're proud of the work that we put out. And then you take it even further. The things that you guys do internally is remarkable. You've got fresh cookies that are baked for your patients and that are here. You've got a coffee bar. You celebrate your patients like their birthday. You guys have this Italian soda that you guys do for them. So it's just this constant movement and fun that I feel like you guys do a really good job of in the practice.
Yeah, a lot of these things just stemmed from finding solutions to problems that we have. Like we had a blank wall. What are we going to put up there? But the cookies we started because there's a teriyaki restaurant next door, and our office smelled like teriyaki like all day. And within a couple of days that the office was open, my first staff member was like, I don't think I can sit in here and just have the place smell like teriyaki. So we thought, well, what smells nice that we could counterbalance it with? And we just bought some cookies from Costco and a toaster oven and started baking the cookies just to like get the smell of warm
out.
Baked cookies in there. Yeah, but then the patients got to expect it. Now it's been 16 years, and I don't think we could take those cookies away without having some upset people. So a lot of times it's just looking for a solution to a problem and throwing a couple things at it, and then you find, oh, this actually worked out pretty well.
Yeah, there's a lot of additional benefits that came from that. Well, and even when I was here in summertime, you guys shook it up and you added ice cream or popsicles, I think, to the fridge that you guys have at the front. And again, your team is really integral in that, because when somebody comes in, whether it's an existing patient, a parent, or somebody new, they're really good about saying, oh, by the way, we've added popsicles to the fridge, go get you one. Or after a new patient exam, on the way out, your treatment coordinators, walking them by there, here, take a cookie to go. And again, this is not just a cookie off a tray, it's wrapped in a little cellophane bag, and your nice little sticker goes across that. And so again, that consistent branding and just making sure that everything is connected is really, again, remarkable with the attention to detail. Can you think of anything else from a marketing, either internal or external standpoint, that you want to throw out here?
Well, I should give credit that we've worked with marketing companies, and so it's not all our ideas, but you're not gonna get the personalized stuff from the marketing companies. So we'll use them to help us with things like our website or our logo development or making things so that they're consistent. But I think even if you're paying the money for a marketing company, you have to kind of go to the next level and make sure that it's fitting properly with what you want to portray to your patients.
Yeah.
And so I think that we've mended the two together pretty nicely. And I definitely think, as an orthodontist, but probably general dentist too, that the least expensive, best bang for your buck referrals are always going to be the internal referrals, the friends and family and neighbors of your current patients. And so we really put an emphasis on that as much as we can, which means that I'd rather spend time and money and effort on making the office experience nice, or giving things away to our current patients, or just ways that we can make their life better when they're here, rather than try and throw something out online or on the internet or on a billboard or something like that just you don't know who it's going to go to, or if it's the kind of family or patients that you're wanting to attract to your practice.
Exactly. Yeah, it really is. Those internal referrals are worth it. So if we can amp up the experience here and make it something that's worth talking about, or like you talk about a lot with your team, raving about to other people, then that's the least expensive type of marketing, and it gets us the best type of patients. And so I do think it's worthwhile. Sometimes we want to push the easy button on that and just throw a bunch of mailers out there and call it a day, and that requires very little effort on our part, and let's hope for the best. But to me, this idea of building a really solid brand comes from getting the right patients in the door. And I think a lot of people who are attracted to that experience, to that level of detail, to the fact that the team loves working here and that positive energy is contagious, all of that ends up creating raving fans, and then they are going and telling others about it, who hopefully come here and find the same experience. So that's the tenets of branding is in that scenario right there. So I agree, that's the most cost effective and effective type of marketing. So, and again, you guys, I just think put the time in to be creative. You guys have done that. It shows. It clearly shows that this is top of the mind, and not marketing is not an afterthought to you guys. You spend time really truly thinking about it and evaluating it seriously, and that effort shows.
Yeah, and I think that again, to give credit to my wife, she has taken that on as her job, and she spends many hours a day thinking about that and implementing it. And I think, depending on the practice size, it's really hard to do good with marketing if you don't have somebody who's got time carved out specifically devoted to it. I know I'm a fan of listening to Roger Levin, the practice consultant, and he's big on marketing, and he always insists that you have a practice relations coordinator that's like a full-time or part-time job where they're thinking about marketing. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that. And I think, if you're a big enough practice that can carve away the role or the hours, then that's worth it.
Do it hands down. It's totally worth it. Okay, any other thoughts on team or culture or marketing before I pepper you with some annual retreat questions courtesy of Dr. Kuba?
No, just that the team is the touch point in your practice, and so I feel like it's worth investing the time to educate and train them and make them feel important. And there's just not enough of me to go around, and so I want to look for other people that have the similar values, and that's what I look for when I'm hiring people, is people that have a similar work ethic and value system as me.
And I think you're right. I mean, going to the level of making sure your team feels noticed, appreciated, that they're bought into the culture, which then makes them feel even more noticed and appreciated. It really does all collaboratively work together, and it's worth putting the time into that for sure. Okay, so annual retreat questions. I had a couple highlighted for you that I'm going to pull up here. So one of the questions that I think is important is evaluating how our time is spent over the course of a year. So even this morning, we spent a lot of time with your team really reflecting back. We end the year this way, where we reflect back on what went well. And one of the things that I think is important is how we spent our time. So what are the things that stole your time over this last year or took a lot of your time? And then the subsequent question is that staying on your agenda for next year, or is that being rectified? So what were your time suckers?
Well, I have 3 kids, and 2 of them are teenagers, and so definitely kids are a big source of where I spend my time. But as they've gotten older, it's gotten to the point where I really love that, and I'm looking forward to spending time with my kids. I enjoy, I think maybe it's the age that I chose to work with too. Are these teenagers and young adults. So my family takes a lot of my time. Worrying about staffing has taken a lot of my time over the last few years. Even as much emphasis as we put on it, and as intentional as we try to be, the reality over the last 3 or 4 years has been really challenging for, I think, everybody across the industry. And so worrying about staff and am I going to have enough, and where am I going to find my next one, has been a big source of the extra time that I've spent outside the office. Yeah. Is there, when you think kind of to next year and how you want to spend your time, obviously it'd be nice to not have to think about staff as much. Do you feel like is that possible, or is that a pipe dream at this point? Well, I think it's getting better.
Yeah.
And I kind of hear that across the industry, as it's still not, like it was 15 years ago. And I don't think it ever will be again. Honestly, it's a kind of a different generation of employee that we're working with. But I definitely think it's possible for things to quiet down a little bit and for us to have some stability. We're starting to see lower resignment rates in jobs across the country, and so I kind of think that people are looking for a little bit of stability, and of course that's what we're aiming for in our practices as well. So I think there's some hope there, especially if we're attracting the right people.
Yeah. And again, hopefully even just the market alone stabilizes, and that ultimately reduces some of our stress, at least. Even if there's not existing problems that are happening, I think we've kind of, it's almost a little bit of PTSD. We've kind of had such a jolt of problems that came out of staffing with the pandemic that it's almost like we're just waiting for something else to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's always when is another shoe going to drop.
Yeah. The other question I had for you is, name the things that you wish from a practice standpoint that you could have done better this year.
Well, this year's been a little bit down with new patients, and I just wish that I knew exactly how to bring those new patients in the door and what is really speaking to people right now. It's hard to tell if it's financial and if they need some financial incentives or if there's something else that's going on. And so I'm always thinking about how we can just continue to get the right patients in the door and talk to them about treatment.
And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because we spent all this time talking about the effort and attention that you put to marketing, and that can be incredibly defeating to get to the end of the year and you're like, oh, what do you wish could have gone better? And you're like, oh, more new patients. We really needed more new patients. And I do want that to be an encouragement to our listeners, that there's going to be times that you are throwing everything you've got at it and the results aren't what you wanted them to be. And that doesn't mean that the effort was wrong. It just means for whatever reason it didn't work, and you of course go back, reflect, reevaluate, make sure that you're on the right path, but then most of the time you just keep moving forward and do what you know has worked. This is a moment in time, and if you look back over the 16 years of your practice, it's all led to a lot of success and a lot of really good things. And so it's short-sighted to go, oh man, the marketing didn't work like we wanted it to this year, so throw it out the window. Well, that's 16 years of effort, and you had 1 year, maybe another bad year in there somewhere, and we can't throw it out because it just didn't yield the results we wanted to this year.
Yeah, but those pain points really do help you to look back and reflect, and it's like, am I doing things right? Have I gotten stuck in a rut or anything like that? Am I focusing marketing in the wrong places, or are we executing it properly? And the conclusion I've come to is that we're doing things right, and I'm happy with the message that we're doing, and I think that our staff is doing a good job of marketing our practice, and it's just little blips here and there, but I'm glad that we have the opportunity to kind of use these times to reflect on it. You're exactly right. I feel like sometimes if we don't have those points of pain, then we just move on assuming that everything's okay, and sometimes we have to have these to force some reflection. And again, if you can come to the end of that reflection, you're like, okay, no, there's really nothing that I would change or could change, so we continue with it. And even today, we kind of opened up the floor to your team for any thoughts or ideas that they have on that. And there were a few maybe little things that we could try or spend a little bit of time on, but I think they feel the same way, that you guys are doing everything that you possibly can do, and it's a blip. It will pass, and things will resume, to normal, hopefully very soon. So I really appreciate you being on the show with me. I know when I first mentioned this, you're like, I'll do it. I know it's probably a little out of the comfort zone, but I just am so glad to have you on here. And I think you guys do so many things well, and I'm glad our listeners have now been exposed to that. Thanks so much, Bethany. It's a pleasure to be here, and of course I love working with you and everything that you've taught me about these things too.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.